I believe you pre-started some seeds a couple weeks ago.
I did, yeah. I do have some here on the go. I'm just going to put this in place here. Step one is having a tray that doesn't leak on your furniture if you're doing this in the house. The next thing is a tray that will support the inserts that you're going to use. So we have a tray that holds water.
Yes.
Then we have a tray that has good perforation so the moisture doesn't build up.
It's going to allow some drainage.
Yeah. Next we choose an insert that's going to suit the type of seed we're going to plant in here. So that's clean trays are so important. You can use trays from home, but wash them well. Use some bleach or something to get them cleaned up.
It is nice to buy new as well. They're not very expensive, so it's really good to avoid any bacteria problems, algae from the previous year. It's really hard to guarantee at home that you're going to make your old equipment sterile, so it's just as easy to come in and get some new stuff, and then you'll know that nothing's going to be wrong with it.
This is a part of the collection you might pick up, and it's just like a mini greenhouse that helps keep the moisture in around the seedling when it's germinating. Some seeds start better in the dark, and that's a possibility. Step two, we're going to open a new package of seedling mix, and this is going to give us a resealable level in there or somewhere at some point.
I saw a hole.
Yeah, there we go.
There we go.
So the beauty of having like a good fresh seedling mix is that you're not bringing in disease and your material is going to have so much better of chance to get established in one of these good mixes. And if you are doing a lot of seeds, you save a bit because you're going to top dress some of the
right,
seeds.
Yeah.
So
sometimes
you start
it's a good idea
off
to
with a
sprinkle.
nice full tray like that. Leveled it off, but not compacted, just sort of smoothed off on the top.
Alrighty. So step three is when you're going to moisten the soil. You want it to be a little bit damp when you apply your seeds. So I've got my watering can with a nice rose on it there. Making sure to distribute the water nicely and just give it a very light coat like that.
Because it's very important not to have it saturated to the point that it doesn't dry out. It'll give you a lot of headaches if you do it that way. So in step four, we're going to put our seed in the trays. These trays are designed to be planted directly. So we only want to put a bit of seed in each one of these. So let's have a look. We're going to go with peppers, and the interesting
so these are nice. I did these last year, mini peppers. They're something that's good to start nice and early. I'll open up the peppers, and then we'll probably put a couple seeds in.
Probably good luck tree.
Yeah, exactly.
On the back of each one of these packages, it tells you what the depth and the amount of time that they require to be, ready to go in the garden, and you count back from your frost-free date. So this group of seeds could be put in with three in a container like this.
And then if too many if all three of the seeds germinate and pop up, then you can just thin them out. This is just a good way to make sure that you at least get something. So 2 or 3 to start, and then I'll poke them in after.
We'll do this entire section of 8 sections, and then if we have a bit of extra seed, we can double up on 1 or 2 of them. All right.
Just gonna grab some extra soil from the bag and make sure to cover the seeds very lightly. On this package it said 6 millimeters is how far down you want these seeds to be planted, so I'm just gonna give it...
If you have gray hair, that's 1/4 inch. But
So just enough to give them a little bit of cover, and then...
and here this might be a time to moisten it, just to settle it.
Yeah, when you have your spray bottle all set up, you can give them a spritz just to make sure it's nice and evenly moist, and then you're ready to go to the next step.
It's super important to label. So we want to put a label in here at this point, just to say the variety we've planted in that tray.
Yes.
Also the amount of time it's going to take. So we'll put the label in. So you put the variety, the type of pepper, the date that you planted it, so that you know if at some point in time you want to, if you decide at some point in time you want to keep a record. Boy, it's such a help if you go from year to year.
Alrighty, so all I wrote was the type of seed, mini bell peppers, today's date, March 18th, and 6 to 8 weeks. That's how long they want to be in the soil before you transplant them. So step 5 is simply cover the seed tray. So I'm just going to pop my dome over top of the tray, making sure that my vents are open so that it doesn't get too humid in there. But that's pretty much it. Once you have that set, then you don't want to do anything but water it.
This is an addition, but a possibility, and that is if you don't have a nice warm spot for them, you might want to consider a heat mat. Putting it underneath the tray really gives the seed a good chance to start in the warmth.
So the next step is to make sure you keep a solid temperature for the seeds. You want to place them in a nice warm spot and put them on a seed mat, possibly if you've got a drafty house, or if you're a little bit worried about inconsistency in the temperature. It's a really nice thing to have the seed mat to place that on. Generally the soil temperature is about 10 degrees less than the surrounding air temperature, so it's really nice to have something like this where you're going to keep it consistent.
If you're doing a fair bit of seed, it'll really pay off for you. You just roll it out, plug it in, and it puts a constant bottom heat on the seeds that you're waiting to see germinate. And germination is different with each seed. Like peppers will take the better part of 2 weeks to come up, where some types of seed are going to pop up in 5 days. And so your timing there is a lot to do with how good the environment is where you're starting them.
Yeah.
Step 7, we want to uncover the seedlings once they've germinated. Now these are all different varieties and therefore took different amounts of time. This being peppers in here that were planted at the same time as the marigolds and tomatoes, they take a little longer, so they're one of the things you start early. There's a list of different ones, and germination is just having the seed break open. And as soon as that seed is open, you want to treat it differently, because then you want like air circulation.
Right, yeah, so once the seedlings get to this point, that's when you want to take the dome off, because then at that point the moisture is going to be almost too much and you can rot the plants a little bit.
There's a problem in seedlings if they're planted too close together called damp off, and it's a fast spreading fungal type that will attack seedlings, and so that air circulation once they've reached this stage. So in step 8, we were going to transplant from a seed tray into a tray that we're going to grow them on. And if you can justify the peat pots, they're great. They transplant and they break down in the soil. You don't have to remove them one more time. So we could use like a peat pot. It's a peat moss.
Yeah, so a peat pot is something that instead of using plastic, something like this, you can plant it right in the ground and it will just disintegrate over time in the ground. It's eco-friendly and it's really easy to use. It helps with transplanting
and when they're
roots.
Moist, the roots just come right out through the sides.
Oh
of
yes,
them.
yeah.
And away we go. So as soon as these plants are large enough that you can handle them by the leaves, you don't really want to take hold of the stems because they're really quite tender. You want to separate these out so that the actual plant we're working with has a chance to produce a set of roots. You put them in individual, and these paper mache pots are just great when it comes time to move them into the garden. That allows them to carry on, and you can transplant them with no shock at all when you go to put them in the garden. So these
it eliminates that other step where you're
Yeah.
shocking the roots. With something like this, you can just put it right in the ground and the roots are not going to be unhappy.
That's right. And if we left them in the original seedling trays, ooh, I pulled a leaf off. If we left them in the original seedling trays, they're a little too compact, and there's the risk of having moisture cause almost like damp off is a problem that will attack the stems, and it's almost like mildew. It starts when there's little air movement and they're really too close together, so the moisture gets a chance to now there's a little one on the side there, so I'm going to put 2 in here. It looks like they want to stay together. They're buddies. And then we'll pull out another here, and you have to separate them out kind of carefully so that you don't disturb the roots. So you might wonder why I'm using a pencil here to separate the seedlings from the seed tray. and to sort of open the hole where I'm hoping to drop that root down in. We got to be very careful not to put them in too deeply at this stage. Now I know when it's time to go to the garden, some people want to bury a bit of the stem, but at this stage you would probably cause your seedling to rot. So we have to be kind of careful, and we use you can use your finger. You know, you can open the hole.
The pencil just allows you to be a little bit more precise
yeah,
as well.
Yeah, that's
Simple
right.
as that,
There's people make a dowel wooden transplant tool
Right.
similar to a pencil. Step 9, once the plants are large enough, they could go into the garden. We could open an area in the garden and set them in. We try not to disturb them. You know, they just go in, and you don't bury the stems in most plants. Most plants are better if the original soil is still visible after you put them in the soil, and you move them before they get sort of leggy or soft. If you left these much longer, they're going to be kind of limp, and this transplant shock will actually firm the plants up.
So another thing we want to mention too is before you transplant your plants right in the ground, you probably want to take the whole tray or the pot and set it outside for a little bit.
Yeah, once they're a good size, you know, and if you can pick an overcast or misty day, once the temperature's up, a windy, sunny day, they'll burn almost like frost.
Yeah.
So you can damage them, you know, after all your work. So you got to really be careful getting them out, put them in a sheltered place in the yard to give them a chance to just get firm, so that when you put them in the final spot in the garden, they're not going to suffer that.
Yep, and they're a little bit used to the wind and the new temperature and the change of temperature, so it works in that way to just harden them off a little bit before you plant them in the ground.
So the term we use is hardening them off, but all that means is getting the plants used to moving from that indoor sheltered environment to a wind and sun location outside. The same as we'd suffer a sunburn, a tender plant coming out can, you know, actually be damaged. So you carefully cushion the shock of moving them into the outdoor environment. So just a quick tip, when you're transplanting from the seed tray into the next size, you could do this with your fingers. Some little tool to just help separate them, it sometimes makes it a little more concise, and you can. But we're worried about when we're separating them here is that we're not breaking too many of the roots off. So we kind of use the pencil in two ways. We use it to help separate these, and you can see some little seed there that hasn't quite germinated yet. So we might be a little bit ahead of the game, but that makes it set into the soil easier for you.
So step 10 is when we are ready to plant our plant babies out in the ground.
And that'll vary from area to area, even in the province, you know, the northern part of the province or the southern part of the province. Being in a city with a lot of buildings and shelter can change the planting time by a week or two. It's ideal to get them in while we still have moist weather. So you're looking at somewhere in the latter part of May. From the May 24th has always been a traditional date for the holiday weekend. It's a big time for putting your plants out. You put them out. You have to watch the weather forecast.
Yeah, I was going to say it changes year to year, but so it could be middle of June, could be beginning of June. So it's just a matter of keeping an eye on the weather and when is the frost going to stop, pretty much.
That's right. And some plants like pansies can handle a frost, where some plants like marigolds are very tender. And tomatoes and peppers, they need to be protected. So the later you hold them, the better chance they have. And if you have the risk of like one night frost, you know, a sheet or a newspaper or some covering over top, a row cover will really help to protect them for that one night. Hope this helps you with transplanting or planting your own plants at home. You can have your own.
This is the finished result. So this is a nice parsley plant that we've started from seed.
It's great
not bad.
For your
not
salad.
bad at all.
And I'm going to take this home to the cat, because I don't think that I'm going to eat the
That
cat
wouldn't
grass.
taste
But
as good.
you know, it takes a week or so to have your own cat grass, and we have it ready at the greenhouses. But if you want to germinate your own, the seeds on the shelf. So Amanda, if people enjoyed this section on seeding and transplanting, what should they do?
Well, you can like and share, write some comments down below. We'll get back to you in the next video. ScottsNursery.tv is where you can find all of our videos for all kinds of different topics.